Hi, Daniel. Welcome to Climate Action Live. It's so great to see you today, and it's so nice to virtually be back together after spending a wonderful weekend for the Forming Impact 10-year celebration, along with Jeremy, the founder of Peace One Day, and now here virtually to talk about climate action. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you also for that wonderful weekend. It was incredible. Sun in Scotland the whole weekend long.
I know, I'm trying to convince everyone that happens all year round, but I don't think anyone's fully convinced yet. I guess if that ever happens, we'll know that climate change is real and it's not going to be a good thing. Luckily, we get 4 seasons, maybe 2, but it's always lovely to have people visit in Scotland. And I'm so pleased to have you join us here today to talk about such an important topic. Daniel, you're the general partner and the co-founder of World Fund. And, you know, I'd love to hear you talk about your mission and the latest work that you're doing with World Fund.
Yes, so World Fund is investing into climate tech companies. We only started 2 years ago, and we're fortunate to raise 300 million euros, which makes it the largest ever raised first-time fund in Europe. In climate for sure, and maybe even on a broader scale. And it's necessary to raise that amount of capital for startups, as climate tech companies are not building an app, but usually need to build facilities to recycle batteries or to produce alternative food. So more capital needed, and this is why we raised such an amount of capital with the first fund.
It's amazing. And that amount of money, it's a big amount of money for people to be talking about. And as you said, that's really important to actually be able to activate and make these projects possible, make them come to life and actually create action. In June 2024, where we are, what is your assessment of the current situation in relation to our journey of protecting our planet and the people and what you've seen and who you're working with?
Some people say that I'm an optimist, but I think it's very realistic to say that we will become climate neutral in 2050. And we have already set everything needed to get there. So we have the technologies. We have also the understanding of the climate crisis. We exactly know what to do and how to do it. All the tools are in our hands. And usually when people understand that, they use the tools and make things happen. Of course, it's always a bumpy road. We humans are open for drama. We like to really hit hard in our face before we act, and this is happening now. So where we are now is that we have all the technologies already researched and many of them even developed. And when you look at many climate tech companies, if it is solar, if it is wind, so I'm showing you this exponential curve, if it is battery storage, if it is developing alternative foods which will replace meat, we are everywhere at that moment of scaling. So this of course, as us, as World Fund, as investors, we believe to be really in the right moment of time investing into climate tech, but also in terms of saving humankind. This sounds bigger, but it's more appropriate than saving the planet. The planet doesn't need to be saved. But it's humankind and life on Earth. I think we are in a crucial moment of time where we are kind of getting it done. And also read a great book, Hannah Ritchie. I can really recommend it. This is not the end of the world. If you are a realist and not a pessimist, read that book and you will understand we have all the tools we have in our heads.
And remind me, am I correct in thinking she's Scottish as well?
Yeah, from my knowledge, she's from Edinburgh. Yeah, and she is even, for me at least, as a German who's based in Berlin, even more difficult to understand than you are.
Well, she must be great. At least it's in writing and not verbally. But I look forward to reading that one. I know we've spoken about it. When we're talking about some of the projects that you're focused on, what are some of the ones that you're most excited about that we could kind of touch on when it comes to protecting planet and people as such too?
Yes, I will talk about 2 projects quickly. It's totally different technologies, but I think it shows who will help us save humankind. The one is a battery recycling company. It's called Cylib, Cylib. And the founder, a female founder, she's the leading metallurgist in Europe. So she has been advising Northvolt, Tesla, Redwood, and other battery producers, also BASF in Germany. So, and has learned that she has developed at her university with her team the leading tech to recycle batteries in a very environmental friendly way and a very cheap way. So all the lithium and graphite and all the other also raw materials, we can recycle them very environmental friendly, which makes the battery again more environmental friendly and cheaper. So this is always the most important thing: cheap, cheap, cheap. And that is also why, fortunately, climate tech will win over fossil fuels, that are comparably expensive, and even more if you count in all the damage they create. Another company is Planet A Foods. They are producing cacao in Europe, and if you know that chocolate is the second reason for deforestation after cattle, after meat, it's super important to produce cacao in Europe, not to avoid deforestation, to avoid this monoculture cacao tree planting, where quite often it's children harvesting the cacao, and it's again cheaper, and these are the solutions we're looking for. So I'm excited about solutions that are just more convenient, cheaper, healthier, better for the environment, that will win over those evil technologies that we really have to get rid of as soon as possible.
Thanks for digging into that. And to touch on a couple of the words that you mentioned as well, you were talking about humankind a lot, and also making things cheaper. And that allows accessibility and opportunities for more people to be involved and to make things not just fair, but actually accessible. And when we talk about humankind, we can't, in my opinion, we can't talk about humankind without sort of the no climate action, no peace, when a lot of that's to do with humankind. Could you talk to me a little bit about what you think of when you hear that statement, especially because you're here and you're passionate about humankind at the essence of climate action and that essence of peace?
So the sentence, no climate
action, no peace.
That sounds harsh, but sounds very true, unfortunately, as it's obvious that already now many wars were basically provoked through the consequences of the climate crisis. We know it about Syria, we know it about other wars, and we also know that all the consequences are hitting us harder and harder. So in Europe, we see the floodings and the heat waves, but it's nothing compared to what is even now happening in tropical countries, where no climate action, no peace, unfortunately, is 100% true. I'm a bit it's difficult to talk about it, because the moment I became a climate tech investor was when I understood climate crisis in its essence and all the consequences. And basically, one of the main consequences is war, period. And this is what will affect not only hundreds of millions of people, but billions of people. So this is when I had the moment of understanding all the consequences. I don't know. Was there a second part of the question? Sorry, it's just a sentence that is just
being able to talk to that sentence, I think, is what you've actually described really well, that impact. I was just asking, when you hear that phrase, what it makes you think. How do you talk to that when you hear that statement? And as you've just shared with us, the way the world is now is an impact of the way our climate is as well.
Yeah. It's impatience. It's exactly, if you know Jeremy a bit, and you know that Jeremy is always talking fast and that he's very driven, I think a part of that, maybe even a huge part, is this impatience, where you just understand the consequences and you just want to do everything to not only avoid all the worst consequences that can come, but also if you understand that this maybe is even an opportunity where you can create a world that is better than the world we're living in today. then you're just like impatient. You understand how short your own life is. And when you even have children, of which I know Jeremy also has children, then you just want the best for them and the best for all the people around you because you just love them. And so this is my feeling, impatient. I'm always like, the first fund is just the first fund. I'm thinking about the second and the next funds. We need far more capital. 300 million also sounds a lot, but it's nothing compared to the huge investment gap, which is in the trillions that we need to fill to avoid the worst consequences.
And I know we've touched on this too, and actually it was beautiful to have your family join us when we were in Scotland with Forming Impact. But what advice would you give to people who want to make the most impactful contribution for climate action, but also how can they support the work of World Fund? How can they know what's best for them to be doing with the funds that either they have, that probably not 300 million, but how can they be more involved with the work you're doing, but also with climate action in general? What can we do? What would your advice be?
The best we can do as each person is to improve our so-called climate handprint. Some call it carbon shadow. And it's not the footprint I'm talking about. The footprint is relevant. Like try to use energy that is renewable. Try not to fly, avoid it wherever possible. Try not to eat meat. Talk about your climate action. That's important. And also contact the politicians. This is the 5 advices that I learned from Gregor Hagedorn. He's the founder of the Scientists for Future. If you talk about the climate footprint of an individual, but far stronger and more impact has the climate handprint, the so-called carbon shadow, which is what you do in life. So cycling to work for Shell or an oil giant is horrible. Maybe you have a nice footprint while cycling, but your carbon shadow is catastrophical. So this for think about what you can do better than others. And then decide for the job you can do to really have climate impact. Join either a company that is in climate action, join an investor, or build something by yourself. So this is the best impact you can have. And if it is an investor, if it is World Fund, if you're an investor in experience and you really want to come to the bright side if you really want to do investments that not only are profitable, but also doing good and try to create a regenerative world, join us, spread the word.
That's amazing. And when you talk about that shadow and the handprint versus the footprint, I've not heard that as much. It's really good to hear that. Can we learn more about that through World Fund, or where's a good place to hear and understand more about your shadow versus your footprint?
So, for example, yes, I am a vegetarian and I try to avoid flying. Still, especially when I'm fundraising or meeting founders in person, we're not only investing in Berlin or in Germany where I can get by train easily, but sometimes I also need to take a plane. Here, I don't have a bad consciousness because I totally know that if I invest in the right team that will create a technology that is scalable and will be used by millions, if it is alternative meat or if it will make electricity cheaper and batteries, and so help us to electrify everything that is now fueled by fossil fuels. I know that like flying there to meet this founder or meet her or him even a few more times is nothing of negative impact compared to the huge impact that we can do in scale. And this was also my conscious decision. Like before founding World Fund, I was like Jeremy, a journalist. I was really telling stories. I was trying to convince people to do climate action. I was also supporting politicians with my communication skills. But I learned that the strongest, best lever I can have is to help to fill this investment gap that we have in Europe in climate technology. So there's so many top founders and teams that have developed over years superior climate technologies, but now when it comes to scale, venture capitalists are more like, an app is cheaper and potentially with less capital I could achieve much more capital gain. And then those hardware companies that need to build facilities don't get the capital. And this is where we come in, want to fill the gap, believing that this is opportunities that will make our limited partners, so our investors, rich, but at the same time also help us tackle the climate crisis.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because I think we all then go, how are we never going to travel again? But it's about how can you be purposeful with the travel that you choose? How can you look at the shadow that you're kind of leaving and look at the opportunity in which you're making, and balance and find that kind of, harmony between the two. So it's great to hear that. As someone that does travel for some of my work, I'm always thinking about that. When I can take a train, I'll take a train, but you can't get everywhere by train. And I try and understand and balance that out. So it's really great to hear you talk about that as well, and know that you find ways to balance and find the harmony and the impact that you're making. If people would like to support you and your work and what World Fund are doing, how is it best to work with you, to connect with you, to hear about the work you're doing?
Follow us on LinkedIn, where we share a lot of information, a lot of knowledge also. So if you are in climate tech, we do deep dives. So fortunately, we have a team of 20 full-time employees around already, and they're mostly scientists, so biochemists, chemists, physicists, engineers. And we do deep dives. So this is what you need as an investor when you invest in climate technologies, right? This is also costs, of course, a bit more to have that team, but we share a lot of knowledge. So read it, and maybe you will, especially when you are by yourself an engineer and would like to found something, this would help us most. Of course, build a company and apply for funding. And if you're an investor listening here and you would like to invest into a fund that invests in such climate technologies, feel free to reach out. Also, easiest through LinkedIn, etc. So now we are not fundraising, but Fund 2 is around the corner.
Well, it's exciting, and it's great to know that you're working on this, because I think when we can look at creating impact, for investors, they're looking for returns. But when you can create impactful returns that also we know are going to make a difference in the world, there's a big opportunity to make a change and make a difference there. I love the work you're doing. It's been such a pleasure to get to know you and World Fund since we first met and go on this journey with you. So thank you so much for joining us today. I know from the times that we've spent together in person as well as virtually, the work you're doing is not ending. It's just beginning, and it's making huge change. So thank you for doing this change, and thank you for joining us at Climate Action this week.